Now, this pill might be hard to swallow, but what I'm going to show you today is something that the best landscape photographers know how to do and regularly do that beginner and amateur photographers don't. Hello everybody, my name is Austin James Jackson, professional landscape photographer based here in Southern Utah. In today's video, I'm really excited to jump in and show you guys one of the techniques that pro photographers are using to get really excellent images every time. Now, a bit of a spoiler alert here, it is going to involve some Photoshop manipulation where I'm going to be combining multiple photos taken a few minutes apart in order to show off the best light in every aspect of my photo. Now, I already know all of you photo purists out there, you one-shot people who think that you need to just take one photo and that is the only way to take a true landscape photo. You're going to be in my comments hating on this video. I totally understand. I understand your perspective that you think true photographs are just one simple photo. But for the rest of you guys, I want to show you this tip and you don't have to use it, but it is something that I'm just telling you right now. It is a fact. Many of the best landscape photographers, many of your favorite landscape photographers are using this in order to create better images. So, love it or hate it, I'm going to show you guys the tip. We're going to jump over into Photoshop right now. Now here we are in Photoshop and you can see I've got my three images on the right here. So these images were all taken exact same composition pretty much. I didn't move my tripod at different times of the night. So these two photos here, these first ones were taken like probably 2 minutes before sunset, whereas this one was taken probably 10 minutes after sunset. So I'd say probably about a 15-minute difference. Now, a lot of photographers would have just been happy with this shot. They got the nice clouds, perfect, they're done. But the best photographers, the best landscape photographers are going to be combining the shot where they have a little bit of light in their photo. So you can see here, I've got the light, which is going to make all of the difference in this photo. Because when I have the photo without light, sure, the sunset is nice, but to be honest with you guys, the light makes all the difference. It's going to make things look so much better. Here is what the final photo looks like after I got done editing it. As you can see, the light is fantastic, the sunset is perfect, and the sun is in the perfect spot. That's why you combine all three to make a better photo. Like I said, I understand this is not everyone's cup of tea. A lot of you guys just want to take one photo, and that is the extent of it. You would not be able to capture something like this if you just take one photo, but I totally understand and respect that. If that is the case, go ahead and move on. There's no need to watch the end of this video. But for those of you that want to see this technique, this concept that a lot of the best landscape photographers in the world are using, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it right here. First thing we want to do is open up all of these photos into Photoshop. You can do that from wherever you start editing your photos in. I did it from Lightroom. I opened them as layers. Now, you want to make sure all the photos load correctly, and you can see maybe when I zoom in here that the photos are taken in a slightly different spot. So I need to first align them. So the way that you align them in Photoshop, select the top photo, hold Shift, click on the bottom photo on the bottom layer. Then you're going to go up to Edit, and you're going to go to Auto Align Layers. You're going to select Auto and hit OK. Now that is going to align all of the layers together to make sure that they are all aligned so that your blend is seamless, because when we blend it, we don't want to be able to like see blurry edges or anything like that. Now when I zoom in, you should see that the tree is in the exact same spot every time pretty much. It's still slightly off, but it's close enough. Maybe if I was doing this for real, which I already have, I would spend a lot of time tweaking it to make sure that everything is in the perfect spot. But for me, it is aligned just good enough for this tutorial video. Most of the time, Photoshop does a better job. I'm not sure what happened here, but it's good enough for the video. So these two layers here look very similar, but they're actually what is called a focus stack. Now, what a focus stack is I've got the front in focus on one photo. So this snow is in focus on this top layer, and the background is in focus on the back layer. You can see here, the background is all blurry here. So that's why I've taken the second photo where the background is sharp. But I have the snow that's sharp in this first layer. So I want to make sure to carry that over. So what I'm going to do here is name the three layers. I'm going to call this sunset. I'm going to call this one FG for foreground. I'm going to call this one BG for background. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is super easy. I'm just going to blend the foreground, the snow here in, which is going to be done with a layer mask in Photoshop. I'm going to hold the Alt and Option key when I add this layer mask here. It's going to add a totally black layer mask, meaning that this layer is totally hidden. You may or may not know how a layer mask works. The way that it works is white reveals, black conceals. There's tons of other videos, including ones that I've created, talking about layer masks on YouTube. If you don't know at all how to use them, you should check those out and jump back over here. I'm going to go ahead with this video, assuming that you know a little bit about layer masks, just enough to get you by here. It's pretty simple what we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and grab our brush tool up here in the top left corner, and I'm going to make sure I'm on white. Once you're on white, you're going to want to go to your brush settings here. You can adjust the size as you see fit, and the hardness, you want to make sure it's at 0%. Now I can simply come over here and I can paint white onto this snow. Now, when I zoom in here, what you'll notice is that now the snow is going to be coming into focus here, which is good. You can see there's obviously a little bit of fall off in the background there, but I'm okay with that because if I hide this here, you can see it's not that much sharper on the background image. This is, well, maybe it's a little bit sharper. We can go in and refine this with a black brush. I'm going to use the opening bracket key. It's kind of diagonal to the delete key to make my brush size smaller. And I'm just going to paint this here. I'm painting black on my layer mask to paint this foreground layer out. Now, again, I'm just looking to create focus. I'm creating sharpness basically in my scene. I want to blend this in everywhere that it's sharp. I can grab my white brush, blend this in a little bit. And if the rock is in focus, I can also grab that over here as well. I'm just painting white. So remember, I'm painting this foreground layer into the background in order to make it in focus here. And I think that's pretty good. For the sake of this tutorial, we're going to call that good. So now we have our foreground and background layers are combined. They are nice and sharp now all the way through, but we still don't have our clouds in the sky. That is where sunset is going to come in. So the way that I want to do this is I first want to throw the foreground and background layer into a folder just for organizational purposes. I'm going to hold Shift and select them like that, throw them in a folder, and I'm just going to call this FG/BG. So I know this is the foreground and the background. Now we've got our sunset layer here. What we want to do is create a mask where I'm just selecting the sky. Now this is actually pretty easy to do on most scenes, especially like this one where we've got a hard edge between the tree and the mountains here. What we're going to do is go up here and we're going to hit the quick selection tool. Now there is probably about 1,000 different ways, maybe not literally 1,000, but there's maybe 15 or 10 different ways you can create a mask here in Photoshop. If you know of a way that you like better, go ahead and use that instead. But this is the way that I would recommend doing it if you don't know any way to create a nice mask. Now we're going to go in, I'm going to increase the size of my brush. I'm going to use the plus. I'm just going to click and drag. You can see how nicely when I click that this snaps to the edges. Now that's good because, again, what we're trying to do is create a mask here of just the sky because we don't want to mask any of the tree in because we are going to keep the tree from the foreground rather than from the sky. And I'm just clicking on each of these little holes here to make sure I'm getting everything from the tree. You can see it's done a really nice job making a selection. Now I can slap a layer mask on and it's already going to start to look pretty good here with just that layer mask. Now, of course, we're going to do some refinement because there's some stuff that I don't like. We're going to go in and click on the layer mask here. Obviously, first things first, the sun does not look right. So what we're going to do is grab our brush here. I'm going to go in with a black brush because I want to mask out the sunset to show more of what's on the foreground layer. Again, we're going to go 0% hardness, the size as you see fit for your photo. And I'm actually going to reduce the opacity to about 20% here so I can start to feather things in. Now I'm just going to click here around the sun because I want to make sure the sun is totally in my photo. And you can see, maybe you can hear me clicking my mouse a lot of times, but I am clicking this so that we can see the sun a little bit better. So now it's looking a lot better. It's looking definitely more legit, I think. It's looking really good actually for me. Now the other thing that you can do here to really feather this out and kind of make it look a little bit more realistic so that it doesn't look as obvious that you've combined multiple photos is to come in here, 10-20% opacity, and just hit the horizon. The reason why I want to do this is because I'm just kind of blending the foreground with the background. I can toggle this. Now it's looking pretty good. Now if you see that you start to lose your clouds here, you can flip this back to white and you can come in here and just hit this again. Make sure that you get those clouds nice and good. And it's looking pretty good, I think. Now, the only other thing that you might want to do if you need to match up the brightness, because right now the brightness of the sky doesn't quite match the brightness of the foreground, in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is click on the FG/BG layer. I'm going to create a new brightness contrast. And I'm going to use this tool right here. You'll see when I click this, it's going to apply the brightness contrast to the foreground background layer. And that will be obvious by the fact that the foreground background layer is going to get underlined as soon as I click this. So I select that, that's underlined. Now, if I adjust the brightness, it's only adjusting the brightness of my foreground and background layer. So you can see if I reduce the brightness here, it's going to start to look a little bit more legit. Now, this ultimately, I do want my foreground and background to be bright like this, but what I want to do first before I go in to do any editing like that is I actually just want to match them up so that they look like a regular raw file so that it's really easy for me to edit it. If you're spending all your time when you're editing trying to balance the foreground and background and the sky out, it's going to be a huge pain in your butt. So balance them first before you do any of your other edits, whether you're going to do some more editing in Photoshop or send it back to Lightroom or somewhere else. You need to make sure they're balanced first. So you can also go in and do the same thing to the sunset layer. You can go ahead and select this again, brightness contrast, make sure it's above the sunset layer, click the down arrow and bring up or down the brightness to match the photo a little bit better. Now, it's not really necessary for my photo in particular here, but the other thing that you may want to use when you're blending things like this is you may want a color balance layer. Color balance, you're going to do the same thing. Click the down arrow. It's going to affect just whatever is under it. The reason why you might want to use this is because you can balance the temperature. So if the temperature was vastly different between the sky and the foreground, you could go ahead and do that here. Ideally, you want the temperature to be the same when you load them into Photoshop, but if they're not, you can use the color balance tool to match it up yourself. I don't need to do it on this photo, but that's just a little example. So ultimately, I think this is looking pretty good. This is pretty much exactly the blend that I would want. At this point, I could do Command, Alt, Option, Shift, and E to merge all visible. Now I have a layer here. I can call this base. If you wanted to delete all these layers, you could, or you could leave them, whatever you want to do. But now you have this layer on top, which is just a stamped copy of everything that was below it. Of course, now you have the edges here, which are a little exposed after we did our alignment. You can see maybe here that there's some transparent background. So of course, if you wanted to fix that, go ahead and grab the crop tool and just drag the edges in order to get rid of that. So a lot of different options with what you can do with your photo here. This tutorial was not to talk about how I'm going to edit this photo now. Rather, it was just to show you this really cool technique. Now, of course, showing you guys this, like I said, I know there's a lot of you guys that are not going to agree with this out there, but I'm here to tell you it's a fact. A lot of the best photographers out there are doing things like this to combine the best moments from their photo, whether it's something like this where you want to catch the perfect clouds with the perfect light, or it's something like catching birds above your seascape, catching the background wave at the best time as the foreground wave. All of them are very similar, and this is the same way that photographers are combining all of those different things, all of those instances. And like I said, most of the best photographers out there, a lot of the ones you're seeing on social media, are combining multiple images in order to create a better landscape photo. Hopefully this really cool technique will help you guys to create some better photos. Like I said, I know a lot of you guys will and will not agree with this technique. If that's you, totally understand. And I'm just here to let you know that a lot of the best photographers in the industry are using this technique to create better photos. That's a fact, whether you like it or not. And I think that you should use it for your photography as well. Now, obviously, this is how you would do something like a sky swap, where you're going to combine the nice sunset from your backyard with the really boring sunset you shot on the Oregon coast or whatever your last photo trip was. Don't recommend doing this because it's quite a bit harder to blend something when your tripod moved positions. So when you've shot it on different nights. Also, in my opinion, that's kind of where I draw the line in terms of the integrity of my photos. I like to only combine things that have been shot at the same location at the same time, rather than pulling stuff from multiple different locations, multiple different times. But I'll leave that line to draw up to you as to where it is. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this technique, if you do things like this, and whatever you think. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about it. And if this video was helpful for you, please let me know. Leave a like and subscribe. I'm posting weekly videos helping you guys become better at photography. Again, I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this week's video. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.